Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Cindy Drucare. Police and protesters clashed at Hong Kong's international airport on Tuesday evening after flights were disrupted for the second day. The airport authority announced earlier that all departing flights were cancelled.
There is a heavy police presence outside Hong Kong's airport, including the Special Tactical Squad. Cops carry weapons as protesters blockade passageways using luggage trolleys, metal barriers, and other objects. Then, riot police moved in and detained protesters outside the airport. Scuffles broke out after an injured man was taken out of the main terminal by medics. He had been detained by a group of protesters who claimed that he was an undercover mainland Chinese police officer. The man wore a press vest and claimed to be a reporter, but had a mainland Chinese ID card and a t-shirt that read, "I love Hong Kong police," in his possession. China's Globe Times later announced that the man is one of their reporters. The newspaper is a tabloid published by the Chinese Communist Party's People's Daily. Hong Kong police have admitted previously that they have deployed officers disguised as protesters during some operations.
And U.S. politicians are voicing their support for Hong Kongers protesting against the now suspended extradition bill. President Donald Trump also made a statement today asking everyone to stay safe amid some disturbing intelligence reports. Politicians and prominent figures also spoke out against the Chinese Communist regime and condemned the police brutality taking place in Hong Kong. Former ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley, Congressman Dan Crankshaw, radio host Mark Levin, TV host Laura Ingraham, and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Senator Lindsey Graham said on Twitter, 30 years after Tiananmen Square, all Americans stand with the peaceful protesters in Hong Kong. These protests highlight the moral authority of their demands for freedom and democracy. This is becoming a defining moment for U.S.-China relations. And in the UK, a well-known senior British politician has also voiced support for Hong Kongers in the former British colony. NTD reporter Jane Werrell has the story.
Most of us have seen the scenes of the protests in Hong Kong intensifying, clashes between police and protesters involving tear gas and pepper spray. You can only imagine the tense atmosphere on the streets of Hong Kong right now. Today, Chair of the UK's Foreign Affairs Committee, Tom Tugendhat, said that UK citizenship should be extended to Hong Kong Chinese and that this should have been done in 1997.
That's because Hong Kong was handed over from the UK to Chinese rule in that year under a promise of democracy and semi-autonomy, including an independent judiciary not enjoyed in mainland China. But Beijing has increasingly encroached on their freedom, and the Chinese Communist Party is warning of a hardline crackdown on the recent protests. In a series of tweets earlier on, Tugendhat said the one country, two systems is under threat. Apart from extending citizenship to Hong Kong Chinese, he urged China to not use external forces in the city and said that protesters should seek political solutions to the problems they are facing. But he said the situation has worsened. In a report released in March, the committee said Hong Kong was heading towards one country, 1.5 systems. Video footage released by Chinese state media yesterday shows tanks lining up in what they call a military drill at the Hong Kong border. Some fear it might be a signal of military intervention that's yet to come. Jane Werrell, NTD News.
And in other China-related news, the U.S. announced it would continue with its 10% tariff on $300 billion of Chinese imports. But the administration has delayed the tax on some products for Christmas. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on today's announcement.
The action is divided into two steps. The tariff set for September will be imposed on much of the $300 million list that was released 2 months ago. But in the announcement, the Trump administration has delayed tariffs on certain items, such as laptops, video games, cell phones, and other products until December. President Trump said they're doing this for the Christmas season.
We're doing this for Christmas season, just in case some of the tariffs would have an impact on U.S. customers, which so far they've had virtually none. The only impact has been that we've collected almost $60 billion from China, compliments of China.
Today, he wrote on Twitter that China, as usual, has said it will buy big from American farmers. So far, they have not done what they said. Maybe this will be different. The president's tweet comes close to 2 weeks after he said China was not following through with its promise to buy American agricultural goods. This suggests the possibility that the president may compromise with China in September. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
Federal investigations into Jeffrey Epstein's alleged suicide are escalating. President Donald Trump announced today he wants a full investigation. Meanwhile, federal officials were seen on Epstein's private Caribbean island yesterday.
President Trump spoke with reporters today, reminding the public that Attorney General William Barr is handling a large investigation into what he called the Epstein episode.
Basically, what we're saying is we want an investigation. I want a full investigation. And that's what I absolutely am demanding. That's what our Attorney General, our great Attorney General, is doing. He's doing a full investigation.
The accused sex trafficking ringleader died Saturday in his jail cell in an apparent suicide, but non-existent surveillance footage and a lack of means to commit the crime have left many questions unanswered. A statement released today by Department of Justice spokesperson Carrie Kupek revealed that the Bureau of Prisons has temporarily reassigned the warden in charge of New York's Metropolitan Correctional Center, where Epstein was being held, pending the outcome of the FBI and OIG investigations. The statement added, 2 MCC staff assigned to Epstein's unit have also been placed on administrative leave. Meanwhile, FBI agents were spotted on Little James Island, a private Caribbean getaway Epstein purchased in 1998. An FBI spokesperson confirmed the agents' presence in the Virgin Islands was related to the investigation, which is slated to continue despite Epstein's death.
And now to Russia. President Trump is weighing in on Twitter about what he called the failed missile explosion in Russia. This after a U.S. official says a new type of nuclear-powered Russian missile likely caused a deadly explosion at a remote military test site.
Tonight, confusion and concern about a mysterious explosion and a missile test gone wrong that some now fear could be the worst Russian nuclear disaster since Chernobyl. Moscow acknowledges a blast took place at a naval range last week, but won't say whether it was nuclear. Instead, they're saying liquid fuel caught fire during trials in the Arctic North, leading to the blast. Local authorities initially said they recorded a short-term spike in radiation levels, but their statement was later deleted. And the Defense Ministry claims no dangerous substances were released after the explosion. But satellite images appear to show that the Russians have sent a special nuclear fuel carrier ship to the area.
That ship is used to carry nuclear fuel, and Russia in the past has used that ship to transport the radioactive reactor unit from the nuclear-powered cruise missile.
Russia's state-run nuclear agency did admit that 5 of its employees were killed in the blast.
A chain of tragic accidents happened, although our preliminary analysis indicates they were fighting to get the situation under control. Unfortunately, that failed.
Last year, Vladimir Putin revealed Russia is testing nuclear-powered cruise missiles to counter NATO's missile defense system.
Now that the missile launch and ground tests were successful, we can begin developing a completely new type of weapon, a strategic nuclear weapon system with a nuclear-powered missile.
If this was nuclear, it would not be the first time Moscow muddled its messaging after a potential nuclear mishap. In 1986, the Soviet Union didn't acknowledge the Chernobyl disaster until Western nations detected heightened radiation levels in Europe. And in 2000, Moscow kept its own public in the dark about the sinking of the Kursk nuclear submarine, killing all 118 sailors on board, leading to harsh criticism of then-new Russian President Vladimir Putin. Tonight, more questions than answers remain, as Vladimir Putin's office still has not commented at all on the explosion, leaving Russians and the world guessing how dangerous the aftermath might be.
Into New York City, the cyclist death rate has increased rapidly, nearly double the fatalities of last year. The city's elected public advocate takes the issue to the streets.
We now have an epidemic of people dying on the streets.
There has been 19 cyclist deaths so far this year in New York City, up from 10 in all of last year. City officials now feel the urge to make some changes.
We can build more protected bike lanes, not just regular bike lanes.
On July 25th, Mayor Bill de Blasio announced a $58.4 million Green Wave initiative 2 days after 2 other cyclist fatalities in the city. The plan promises to keep cyclists safe on city roads over the next 5 years by installing bike lanes and redesigning city streets at a faster pace. Cars are honking in the background while cyclist Laura Shepard complains about the poor conditions for cyclists.
There are a lot of reckless drivers, there are cabs picking up and dropping off, sometimes there's garbage in the bike lane.
It hurts. I ache for all the other people who are killed and hurt while riding their bikes. I've been hurt a number of times riding a bike.
According to New York City Department of Transportation, 800,000 people ride a bike in the city, and that number is growing. Sydney Wong, NTD News, New York.
Chile's national animal, the endangered Huemul deer, is receiving a lifeline after illegal hunting and disease from livestock have pushed the species to the brink of extinction.
The Huemul deer appears alongside the condor in the country's coat of arms, but according to reports, there are less than 1,500 left in existence. But this month, the Huelo Foundation, together with the Conservation Center for the Huemul of the South, freed a male and female pair into a natural reserve in Chile's Los Rios region. It's a new milestone, a new era, and a new possibility for the species. Currently, 20 deer live in a quarantined area covering 100,000 hectares of forest. Rangers have set up a controlled environment to keep out predators and police against hunters. But the reserve's rangers expect the new occupants will soon enjoy the pristine forests, fields, and rivers of the reserve. The foundation hopes that the Huemul's success will kickstart the conservation program and help expand it across the country.
And in Mexico, the majestic Popocatépetl volcano erupted early this morning in a dramatic show of ash, water vapor, and gas under a canopy of stars. The dramatic eruption started at 5:43 a.m. local time, spouting ash followed by incandescent rock. Shortly after sunrise, a new plume of ash and gas emerged from the snow-capped crater, reaching some 3,200 feet into the blue sky. The volcano sits about 44 miles from Mexico City, and at 17,802 feet tall, it's the 5th highest mountain in North America. Cate Blanchett is bringing the 2012 best-selling novel Where'd You Go, Bernadette to the big screen.
Cast of the insightful comedy attending the red carpet premiere yesterday in New York. Blanchett portrays Bernadette Fox, a successful architect who leaves her career to tend to her family and finds herself without creativity when her only child goes off to boarding school.
I think the root of the story is that we have many chapters and movements in our life where we learn something new about ourselves and where we sort of have to update narratives that we've outgrown and ask ourselves the question, who am I now?
As for Blanchett, it was easy for her to understand the character.
I think all of us, if we're honest, have been Bernadette at one point in our lives. We've been so obsessed with succeeding in the world and being the perfect wife or mother or friend, but also had a kind of a relentlessly negative inner monologue. But she does it in such a funny way.
Where'd You Go, Bernadette will hit theaters on August 16th.
And that's all for today's NTD News. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Cindy Drucare.